Okay, so let's get started. We are on the bottom of page Gimel at Bet. It's the last couple of lines. So we're talking about two-storied housing and how that ends up affecting our air situation. So there are different people living upstairs and living downstairs, and the question is who has usage of what areas and how does that affect our ability to have an Eruv? So we're at Tanan, the bottom of Peg Yimel Bet. So Tanan, Anshe Chatzer, Anshe Merpeset, Shachachu v'lo Irvu, Kol Shegavoa Sar Tvachim Merpeset, B'chol Mikan L'Chatzer. Here we are. Let's use this. Here we go. So I'll show you the diagram here. So we got people living upstairs, people living downstairs. So the question is, what is considered to be the property of the people on the lower floor versus people on the top floor? It said it depends on if the item is 10 tefachim above the ground. Yes, they would also mention, the Mishnah also mentioned that it has to be within 4 tefachim of the porch, because just because there happens to be a nice pillar all the way out in the middle of the courtyard, if you can't access it from the second story, then that doesn't really count. So now, okay, so we're on the bottom of Pig Gimel Bet. Right, right, about Tanan, Anshe Chatzer, Shemer Pezet, Chechachu v'lo Irvu. Right, people, two people, one on the upper story, or people on the lower story, they did not remember making Eruv together. So the question is, what stuff is whom's? So we said that that anything above 10 tefachim tall is considered to be part of the upper yard, whereas in the upper story, whereas in below 10 tefachim is part of the ground floor. So So we might enter your mind and say, what do you mean by mirpeset in the first story, in the Mishnah? B'nei Aliyah, you may have thought of people living in the upper story. So umay karula mirpeset, dekasal ki mirpeset. So what? So again, you may have thought that when we said on the second floor, you may have thought that simply meant that. So in ancient houses, so they didn't have. So when we think of modern housing, we think oh, there's plenty of ways to get. There's multiple ways of egress, right? But back then, like sometimes when you lived in the attic, it literally meant like there was like a thing. I mean, I'm not sure what building codes are here, but they would have the little ladder going to the upstairs floor, and somebody would be on that floor, and then the people upstairs could pull up or put down the ladder, but it wasn't like there's a nice hallway or anything else connecting everybody. It simply could have been just like a ladder as access point. So if that was the story, just people who were technically up who lived upstairs, but all they had was a ladder or stairs leading up. So that wouldn't make much sense what we're talking about. So what is the case? It must be that everybody on the top floor is also connected by a balcony. I mean, pet set. In order for this question to be relevant, because if not, you would say this is shots to these people versus that people would be very strange thing to say, because well, they have no choice but to exit out and use and utilize the courtyard, which should in turn automatically forbid usage of the entirety of the courtyard, regardless of who made an area with whom. Right? They all have to be together or not. So this is not the case. This is the cases where there's a mere peset, where there's a balcony that can connect, that they can connect as in the picture there. Okay, so now in terms of the ability to use the area, so this area that we've not made an Eruvin yet. So the question is, how could each of them use the courtyard or the pedestals, right? Or that are found in the yard. So alma kol lazeh b'shilshul lazeh b'zrika notnin auto lazeh b'shilshul. So this implies that any place that one people can reach it by lowering and one place can reach it by throwing, meaning the upper story, right? Because again, the actual head of the story, as I hope we all know, isn't only a meter tall, isn't only 10 tefachim, which is roughly a meter. It's actually more than that. Again, we are on the top of Pei Don Amud Aleph. So we were issues that come up with people upstairs and people downstairs. And the question is, what's the setup? So we say that they have to be connected via a long balcony. Otherwise, this case wouldn't make much sense. There has to be a balcony outside the windows for the upper story, as seen in the picture. And then we're saying that if you want to use the pedestals, so it turns out the people on the lower floor have to basically, in order to use it as an access, they have to throw things to get it onto there, because they're not allowed to, because it's an area with multiple people who would normally be able to use it. Therefore, they can only utilize it by throwing things on top. They can't simply place it like they normally would. Meanwhile, the people who are on the upper story, it is currently lower down than they are, because normally a story would be at least the height of an average person, which should be around 20 tvachim, not 10. So for how tall you are, you're welcome to measure with your own tvachim, see if that works out. Again, this is an approximation, so we'll just go with that. So meaning so the two different people will be asking in different ways, but either way, it still wouldn't be super convenient to either one. And yet we're saying that the more convenient usage is if you lower things down to the platform, then if you try and throw things onto the platform. So again, so this is a bachlok we had last time of what is the preferred form of usage. Because when we have multiple people having potential to use it, so we try and decide that goes to the one who's going to have the easiest use for it. Because it seems a shame because it doesn't make sense to have it be usher for one person when the other person wouldn't actually end up using it. Because we only say that things end up being usher when there's to both is when there's completely equal access. If one has greater access than the other one does to an area, then it would go to the person with greater access. So, and how do we know that it goes to the person who has greater access? In this case, that is lowering. K'damar Huna, La'oto hadarim b'merpeset. Hachanami la'oton hadarim b'merpeset. So, because Rav Huna said that in general, when we have people on an upper story, they always get things that are high up. So here too, that would be the case as well. It all goes to people living on the balcony, not people living down below. Ihachi, emasefa pachu mekan l'chatzer. If so, how about the chatzer? Why is that different? Right? Why is the stuff below 10 tvachim belong to the courtyard? Both people living on the balcony, as seen in the picture, as well as people below, both have a entrance leading to the courtyard. So why are we saying the courtyard goes to people down below, not people above? Right? Why is that the breakdown? So my lechatzer, af lechatzer. So what? No. What do we mean by saying that it's considered to be used by the chatzer? It means also the courtyard, which actually means that ushneim asurim. It means that since both the upper story and the lower story have equal rights of access to the courtyard, and you didn't make an eruv, then even though the upper story made their own eruv, the lower story made their own eruv. Because their areas aren't inclusive, therefore neither of them could use the courtyard this Shabbos. So now the Gemara is going to further explain why this is the most logical interpretation of the Mishnah. So Hachi Nami Mistarba, this makes a lot of sense. Because the last half of the Mishnah mentioned that this only makes sense when that pillar is close to the upper story. Aval muflaget, when it's far away, meaning more than 4 tvachim. Afilu gvoa 10 tvachim l'chatzer. But yeah, if it's far away from the second story balcony, then it would be considered to be part of the courtyard, not part of the balcony. So my l'chatzer. So what do we mean by say it's part of the courtyard? Ilay l'chatzer ushari amai. If you want to say it belongs to the courtyard and it's mutter for everybody to use, how's that possible? The problem with the courtyard is that everybody in the upper story, as well as the people in the lower story, they all have equal rights to the courtyard. So you can't suddenly decide willy-nilly it goes to person A or person floor A or floor B, because they're separate floors and they should both have equal rights. And that's what generates the issue. Elamai chatzer, afal chatzer. When we read the Mishnah, they say it's considered to be part of the courtyard. I mean, it's relevant only, it's even to the courtyard, which means that ushneim asurim, both are forbidden. So hachanami, my lechatzer, av lechatzer, ushneim asurin, shmamina. And therefore, in the case of the pillars, we run into the same issue. That is considered to be one is considered to be something that's relevant to both parties. We are definitely stuck, and then that is that. and it's most unfortunate, but that simply is how that works out. Okay, so now, so the pillar is that's the oh, sorry, the diagram wasn't necessarily clear enough there. Here, so we have the here, so this is the mobile pillar. Okay, and now we're going to get to the here. Let me scroll back up for a little bit better picture. Then we'll come back down here. So the original photo again. So this is the setup we had. Again, people upstairs. Okay, this is the pillar, and now we're going to talk about the cistern and the walls surrounding it. Yeah, I know it doesn't look so pretty, but not some. This is an approximation. I'm sure many of you, if you've gone on an archaeological tour in Israel, you notice that some of them look that sometimes you see very beautiful structures, and sometimes they're just pretty functional. So I guess in some later towns they weren't quite as they didn't quite have the funds to make it look so nice. So we shall discuss it shortly. Okay, so Chuyat Habor V'Hasela Goem Asar Tvachim U'Merpeset Pacho Mekan L'Chatzer. So yes, we have this lip. So sorry, I missed the word tanan. So again, so when we have the embankments that surround our cistern, here it's called the bore or cella. They're both water storage things. One would be man-made versus being natural. Versus natural groundwater. So yeah. For our purposes, for Eruvin, they're the same. If we're talking about mikvot, that'd be a separate story. Chaim versus Megishamim, meaning rainwater versus water that comes from the earth, have different halachic statuses. But again, that's a story for mikvot, not necessary, or for Tuan Torah, not for now. If somebody would like to know more about that, please let me know. We will hopefully get with them. I'm happy to talk about it another time. Okay, so when we say, so again, we're mentioning within the Mishnah, the cases of when we say that this water source, who's it shayach towards, like who can use it. So again, we say the walls are really tall, so we say that this whole thing is not considered to be part of the belongs to the people in the second story. So it means that it belongs to people who are the story above. So tenach sela. I understand in the case of a rock, right? That it's more convenient for upstairs and downstairs. But more my equal name, but how can you say that for a cistern, right? Like, is it either way? It's here. So if we have the case of a rock, here, this is a wrong picture. This one over here. Here we go. This is our picture. Great. Here we go. So we've got our cell over here. So our cell is a rock, not a form of not a water source. Apologies. Okay, here we go. So we've got a rock over here versus our. Ignore the fact that it's a little pair. That's gonna happen later. But yeah, so we've got our water source. We've got our rock. So the issue is that normally, assuming the water level is not bursting over the top, it's pretty. Both of them are going to have to lower down their buckets to get the water. So like for either person, it's really not super convenient. Right? Either way, it's not like both people are going to have to lower down their buckets. So again, one has to do it a little bit longer than the other one, but to say that one belongs to one another is hard to say. Right? We said in the case of with the rock, so that makes sense. So tenach sela. I understand why you say that the big boulder we say belongs to the upper story because the upper story is using as lowering down to get it, whereas the one has to throw it to get on top. So I understand why that's different. But bor ma'ikla memar. But again, for a cistern, everybody has to lower down their buckets. So it's the same. So Amr Yitzchak Braid or Yehuda hacha beborm le'mayim askinan v'ha chasra. So the difference is that one is where the pit is full to the very top with water, where the cistern is filled to the very top. But the problem is that even if you say that the bore was filled to the very top, if people are using the water, it'll be empty quite quickly. Like the cisterns aren't, cisterns are gathered water. They don't refill. Right?
It's not like a well.
Right, it's not a well.
It's not like a natural well. It's being gathered.
Correct. So if this was a well, then if you took some off the top, then the groundwater from wherever the source would be would still come in and fill it up. Whether or not in order for that to actually get a high water source like that, ignoring the physics of it being possible or not, and whether that would be other if it had enough water pressure to actually reach there, it would probably be overflowing into the courtyard and have a nice river through your courtyard too. Nice little stream, because those would have to have exactly the exact height of the limit of the water go. Anyways, we'll leave that aside for the physics of water flow from groundwater to above ground. For more, again, we can, okay, sorry. Okay, so the current case is not the well. The well, as Paul pointed out correctly, would be able to remain full, but a cistern would not, because cistern is gathered water. So once you take it out, nothing new is coming in. So the Gemara continues. Kevan the Himalaya Sharia Kichasra Nami Sharia. The Gemara says no. Once it was mutter to use, it remains mutter to use, even if the water level drops. Adarava. No, what are you saying that? It should be the opposite. Kevan the Chichasra Asira Himalaya Nami Asira. Just say since it's going to be a problem when it gets below, we shouldn't let you use it when it's full either, because like we don't want to lead people to do the wrong thing. So Alamarabaye, Hacha, Bebor, Mlea, Pero, Raskinan, the Hachas. Right now, the case is let's say the case is we are talking about that this pit isn't the cistern currently has no water, it's using it for food storage at the moment. Therefore, it's different, and therefore the question is, can you use like the top, put things on top of the fruit? Okay, because with the water, again, everyone would use their water source on Shabbos because, you need water for Shabbos, and assuming you didn't have plumbing. So assuming this is not one of those fancy towns with an aqueduct running through it, this is one of the less fancy towns that only has gathered water. For more ancient water sources and aqueducts, another story. Anyways, so here we're referring to this with cistern water, not with aqueducts. So again, you'd want to have your water source inaccessible, so you would end up using it on Shabbos and it would automatically decrease. But when if it's a pit, when it's full of water, sorry, but if it's full of fruit, then it should be fine. So then the obvious answer is the Hachas. What do you mean? It's going to be Shabbos. I'm going to want some dessert. I'm going to take a fruit at the top, and then now it's not full anymore. No, so Bativla. It's Tavel fruit, right? This is fruit that nobody got around to actually properly separating out Trumot and Masrot from before Shabbos. Therefore, since you haven't separated out Trumot and Masrot, you can't eat it on Shabbos, so nobody's going to consider putting anything in there. The question is, nobody's going to eat it, but the question is, can I put things on top of it or not? Right? So, Dakanami, Diktani, Dumya, Desela, Flamina, and you're right. Odds are that this pit is full of usher to use items, because if it was actually something that's accessible, you wouldn't put a cistern together with a boulder unless they're both equally unusable. So it must be they're both unusable items, and the only question is, can I put things on top of it on Shabbos? Okay. So if it's the same thing, why should they teach both? Just say Sela. So Sricha, the Yashmin Sela delay to the Migzar. Avalbor, Ligzar Zimin Demai Pero Betukanin. No, the difference is that for the case of the rock, you would never worry about the rock or the boulder that anything wrong could happen. It's going to stay the same. Boulders don't tend to move around much. You can't change them. They just kind of sit there and look pretty. On the other hand, the cistern sometimes is full, sometimes it's empty. So you may have thought that this case aren't comparable. So therefore, you need both cases to teach you that sometimes even though in the case of the rock, we're not worried about its level changing. We're still going to forbid its use. We're going to allow its usage for the upper story. So again, the cases wouldn't be exactly parallel, and that's the problem. Okay. So now we're continuing on and trying to figure out what to do in this case and who gets which rights. So here's another parallel Breita. So Tashma. Anshe Chatzer v'Anshe Aliyah sheshachachu v'lo irvu. Anshe Chatzer mishamshim b'asar hatachtonim v'Anshe Aliyah mishamshim b'asar ha'alyonim. So now another case that happened again, where people upstairs forgot, people downstairs remembered. So this is people, again, this is called a Aliyah versus Chatzer, because this one is not a building that has a nice balcony connecting them. It just happens to have, stairs or ladders down. So Ketzad, so what do we mean by which part is relevant to which parties? So we say, Ziz Yotzei min hakotel, if there's a outcropping sticking out of the wall, Lamat Metzger l'Chatzer, Lamal Metzger l'Aliyah. So let's see. So here we go. So we've got these nice platforms sticking out of the wall, right? So probably again ancient shelving, right? Was it a board? Was it an uneven stone? They just kind of flattened on the top. I'm not the one who constructed this particular ziz, so I can't tell you. But either way, it's something sticking out of the wall that's meant for usage. So the question is who gets usage rights. So again, if it's above 10 tefach, we say the people upstairs can use it. If it's below 10 tefach, downstairs. So that seems to work quite well. Then ha deveni veni asur. But if something is right in the middle, then it's asur because they both have equal rights. So how is that possible? So what is going on here, right? So then. Do we say that, or should we be back in this case of is that really is that the case, or are we back to the case where it's equal, or one person can lower it down, or one person can throw it on top, and then it should be answered to both? Which one is it? So we're not sure. So Amar of Nachman, so what's the case? How come a kotel tish asar askinan v'ziz yotzei mimenu? We talk about it's the wall itself is a total of 19, and then there is the ledge sticking out of there, right? The leg to the shelf, that thing sticking out. So l'mal mesar lazeh petach lazeh b'shulshul, l'mal mesar lazeh petach lazeh b'zrika. So we'd say that if it's below 10, the body can access it through their entrance, and therefore it's more accessible to them. Whereas upstairs they have to access it via lowering it down from the story. But if it's above 10, we say that the upper people can access it via their own entrance, via an entrance. I guess Rav Nachman was interpreting it to be they have a balcony, so not a simple. So he's equating the Aliyah case to the case of the Merpeset. But the lower story, well, Zeb is very good. Once above 10 tvachim, the people on the lower story would have to throw their items up on top of it, which is far less convenient than simply walking out your balcony and placing it down.
Sorry, Rabbi, is that a window at the top level there that they would access it from?
Yeah, I believe this one here is a window. So this was the initial thought. Okay, but the story of so this is with a window, but it appears that according to I guess the look of this picture and versus the version of the Gemara that it's according to Rashi and Steinsaltz too, is that in order to say that it's the Lazeb Petach, so that even though a window is a Petach, we generally say the window wouldn't be super convenient if you're once you're lowering out of the window. So I guess you could say the window is really like right next to the ledge, or that again instead of picture being quite like this, you remember these platforms. Just remember that, but it would be attached to the wall over here, so that way one of them would be able to access it through an actual petach. Because generally windows would be considered to be a slightly less convenient usage, as we'll get to in a moment. But so that's the question: as in what exactly is the entry? But again, that's the machlok. That seems to be. It appears to me that it seems like Rav Nachman's referring to it being an actual balcony. Welcome to interpret it as you see at. Well, I'm not one to argue with the Amoraim in this case, but again, that's Rav Nachman's opinion. So So it seems. Okay. Okay, so now we're trying to figure out exactly whose does this ledge belong to, right? So we figured that. So now we're trying to now we're going to turn the daf to try to bring a proof of whose should have rights to it and why. Okay. So Tashma. So Shtei Gzuz Traot Zolimalam Mizu. You have two Gzuz Traot, which is again a type of balcony. This is more of a, I guess more of a buttress would be the modern terminology, I think. If somebody has a, and so I think it might have, yeah, I'll see if I can, yeah, these are Latin words, so like they tend to get like different interpretations. This, as you can probably tell by the length of the word and looking like I'm choking up, like you would choke on trying to pronounce it in Hebrew. It's not a Hebrew word, right? So that means it's Latin or Greek based. So, yeah, so it's referring to a particular structure, a type of balcony needs to have. So what happens when you have each one of these outlying balconies outside of your window, one on top of the other one? This is the diagram over here. Okay, so again, without made out of wood, made of a fancy thing made out of stone. We're not getting into that right now. We'll operate with this picture. I'm sure if you have your own diagram too, it would look similar as well. As far as exactly what is constructed of in Talmudic times, we'll leave aside for now. For now, we'll just focus. We'll operate with the picture. And if I see it, and if I deem it relevant to deviate from the picture, I will make note of it. Again, we each now there are two of these of that type of balcony. Again, these are so the question is who's it considered to be belonging to? So asul elyona v'lo asul tachtona shtein asarot ad she'yarvu. So if you had made this balcony one above the other one, but you made a partition for one but not the other one, neither of them can use it until they made an error. So what's the case here? So again, we have two different balconies. Mirpasot and Gzustarot are not the same thing. Mirpasot is, let's say now, the modern day, let's say, balconies that you tend to walk out at and sit at, right? So that's when you say balcony, that's what you mean. Whereas like a Mirpaset, right? Modern usage of Mirpaset, Gzustarot it's not that. It's more of like an area where you end up, with more functional usage. That's in this case where it's being used as a place to pull water out of the nearby river that's running past your houses. It's not the same degree of usage as a Mirpaset is. Okay, so it's English word would both be best would be I'll use the Hebrew with Latin base of these road just simply because that's the bit more precise word. Okay, but again, so this is what we're looking at. So here the issue is that if only one of them made in order to be able to draw water from the river on or get over whatever body of water that is running by everybody's houses, you need to have a wall constructed over the hole in order to be able to lower down water and draw it in. So you need to have that in order to draw it in. Again, you can either build it above or below. Both of those would work. Again, exactly why they work, we discussed that already. It's because we say that normally you're not allowed to have walls that we say extend all the way down to the ground without touching, but it's a special allowance for water that would allow you to have hanging walls. But again, that's the story of good asik versus good asik, good asik versus good asis, right? That's for going up, walls ascending upwards versus ascending downwards. So again, short walls that reach up to the ceiling are always good, but we're trying to have a gap underneath it. We say it's bad, but that's only allowed in the case of water, which is our current case. So yeah, some made a wall, some didn't make a wall. The question is, how is that going to help us? Right, and the issue is that since they're both would end up using this for the source of the well, the question is now can we both use the same hole that's constructed in the balcony or not? When we each are different houses that don't have an error between the two of us. Okay, so we say if there's 2 balconies, but only one way to access the water. If they made it for, even if it was made initially for the slightly higher story and not the lower story, so for both of them, they can't use this hanging well. They can't use it, either of it use it on Shabbos, because they're both supposed to use it, and therefore, not until they make an Eruv, nobody can use it. So Amar of Ada Bar Ava Bevain B'nei Tachtona Derek Al Yonam Al. So what is the case where we say that it would be relevant only that we could say it belongs where it's going to be forbidden? It's where it goes, where the people on the lower balcony have to throw it in over through the other one. So therefore, they're both accessing it via lowering. Right? Both people have to lower a bucket. Okay, one of them is a little bit more awkward lowering, but again, they're both accessing the water through that same shaft, right? So they're both asking it the same way, both by lowering to get the water that's what will go in below their houses. But again, not the most convenient for either party. So Abai Amar, so then Abai says, what's the case? Kigun de Kaimin do Asara Hadahadade. So basically, so we're saying both, not there's a big gap between A and B. Rather, they are both very they're both relatively close. Can you see both there? You can see there's 40. So here, so again, we so this was what we thought it was, right? 41. So now we're saying maybe that's not what it is. So
Sorry, Rabbi, I don't really understand 41 completely. So are we saying that the bucket would go up and then the lower balcony would take their water and then it would keep going up further and then the upper balcony would take their water?
basically, so each of them would be throwing from inside their own houses, because this area isn't supposed to be. So in order to use it, both of them would be lowering the way that the lower balcony is using it is a little more complicated, because they have to throw it over the edge and then down. Whereas right, but here also they still have to lower down their water, drop it down a whole decent height in order to get access to. For both of them, it's not super convenient, and they're both having to lower down a bucket. So they're both
right. If this isn't the final way, I won't spend a lot of time asking you about it, but I'm confused about how that hole in the lower level has anything to do with the bucket, because it seems like it's going through the upper one and then.
So this is saying that this hole is unable to be used because they forgot to make the walls.
Oh,
right?
I see. Okay.
So then you would need to make a wall either a 10, at the 10 tall and 4x4
That's like a box.
above or below the balcony level in order to be able to actually use the use it. So
that's like an open on the top and bottom box.
Right.
Is that what that is?
Correct. So notice the one on the right would be access from this balcony via petach, because they simply go straight down, as opposed to them to go up and down. Here, right, they have to throw it up, let's say like 15 tefachim up in order to get it into here. Whereas here they have to lift the bucket up 10 tefachim in order to get into the shaft to access the water. But both of them, they're still still doing it's still awkward for both. But here it would be very convenient for the upper story, but not the lower story. Now that would be more problematic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we're talking about where there's right. So the question when we say go from the upper to the lower story, the question is, again, how exactly is it meant to be done? So now we're going to get more into what is the means of getting from one to the other. So Abai says they're within 10 tefachim of each other. Abai Amar could go into Kaime betoch asar d'hadade. Below Abai Kamar. Lo Abai asu l'tachtona v'lo asu l'elyona d'asiri. Obviously, they made one for the lower one but not for the top one. That is the asar for both, because they both have relatively easy access to dropping down the bucket. The kevon de bego asar d'hadade kaminan asar d'hadade. If they're within 10 tefachim of each other, that means that they're on the same level, even though it's slightly less convenient, but the halachically we consider them to be the same height. But even if they made it for the upper story, not the lower story, what would you have thought to say? Because one is slightly easier than the other one. So we say on the end, correct. Even though it is more convenient for one than the other one, we say that it's still a problem because of how the lower will end up working out. Right? is that they're halachically considered the same level, even though one is slightly more convenient than the other one is. So Kihad Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel Gag Hasamach Rishut Rabim. Saraf. Okay. So and similarly, we have a statement by Rav Nachman that if you have a now we're diagram number 44. So we dealt with the access points from upper to lower, and when they're considered convenient versus not convenient. So we said even though no matter if this is even though it doesn't there's steps or there's a gap, but we said if it's less than 10 tefachim, it's considered to be as if it is the same area, even though it's considered the same area, even though functionally it is a little bit easier. So now we're at the case of where there's the question where we deal from upper and lower story, and then there's Rishut Rabim over here. Right? So the question is how are we going to get getting down, and how it's going to lead to an issue of people having access to these stories and forbidding the merpeset as well as the chatzer because of the Rishut Rabim being right next door. So if the roof per story is next to the Rishut Rabim, Sarich Sulam Kavul Hatiro. You need to have a fixed you'd have to have a fixed ladder in order to allow you to have usage of the upper story, in order for the chatzer to be able to use it. So Sulam Kavuain, Sulam Arailo. So if you in the courtyard want to have access to the roof on Shabbos, you need to have a fixed ladder, not a temporary ladder. So my time, why would you need to have a fixed ladder? La Mishum, the Kievan Betocha Sarah, Dadade Kai Me Azra Nadade. So why would you say you need to have a fixed ladder? Because we must say we want to make sure that it's the same level, or it'll be on the same access rights. Otherwise, it would be usher. So we're saying that it must be that you made an error between the two of you, and you have to have a fixed level of access rights to allow it to be mutter for all of you to use. So then there's one problem with that. Is makifla rapapa v'dilma k'shara mechat v'nala b'kumta v'sudra. No, that's not the issue. The issue isn't that people might come. It's not the issue. Isn't with in the courtyard and the upper stories usage of the roof. The issue is that because this upper story is within 10 tefachim of Rishut Harabim, we're not worried about the upper story and lower story forbidding each other. The issue comes down to the people passing by Rishut Harabim putting their hats and their scarves on there. So normally people would end up accessing it, and that would be a problem. And once the people in Rishut Harabim are accessing it, that's what would generate the would make it usher. But once they once you fix the permanent entrance way there, it is of the extra ladder. It'll prevent people from using it as simply a dumping ground for their hats, because people will recognize this is because a lot of these, if you look at it, like again, is this a shelf? Is this a balcony? So sometimes the only way that you can tell which one it is by other features, right? Because again, the difference between we have outcropping versus the balcony, structurally they're very similar. The difference being here is again means of access. So we say that you have means of access with a fixed ladder. The fixed ladder would definitively separate it from the rest. Okay. So that's what we would do, and that's how that would work to separate it out. Okay, I'm going to leave we're going to leave the next bit for tomorrow. Okay, so now so tomorrow we're going to pick up from Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Let's go back and summarize what we covered today. I'll do it pictorially because, well, there was a lot of cases, and hopefully that the pictures will help us remember it. Okay, so we had the last story was there the last picture that I missed? No, these are already for the next step. So leave it. Okay, so again, let's scroll back up to the top. Okay, so again, so we started with our Mishnah, right? People in the upper courtyard, on the upper floor, right? The merpeset versus the people in the courtyard. So we mentioned that we're referring to the case where people upstairs also have a merpeset joining them. They have an outdoor balcony connecting all of them, and that's why this case comes up. Because there actually is an argument to be made that something tall having more convenient access than one than the other one. We discussed that if something is in the middle and is considered to be simply in the chatzer, it is forbidden to everybody until they make a proper eruv. Because once everybody has equal rights to access to a point, and they have not made an eruv between them, then the usage of that area is asur until they make an eruv. We also had discussed Yeah, and at what point do we say that whether it be the pillar, the water source, or the rock in Rosh Hashanah, the cistern, which not in the chatzer, like the joint courtyard, when is it related to the upper story versus the lower story? So it's only be considered to be relevant to the second story, but not the first story, if it's similar to that of the rock or boulder, because there it's filled in. But if it was water, the problem is that it's never going to truly be full, and it'll end up keep lowering its levels for generate problems. But if it's filled up with tevel produce that needs to be separated from a master and therefore is forbidden to be eaten, then it'll be like it's like filled in rock, and therefore you can treat it like it's a platform, and you can say if it's tall enough, it's part of the second story, not part of the ground floor, and therefore it could be accessed by upper story, not the lower story. I mean, then discuss the case of these next outcroppings. Like I said, it depends on how high they are up, whether they're relevant to the upper story versus the lower story. Then we discuss the case of the Gezustraot, which is, again, that's not the normal balcony, but this is more of the balcony that's meant for access to the water, as opposed to one meant for to sit at and actually used in a different way. We mentioned to talk about the way that you would end up using the water, about how you'd have to build walls around it in order to access the water. Again, and also mentioned how this type of building where you build down doesn't quite reach the surface, is only relevant and kosher to be used for water access. You mentioned the difference of access points between the two floors, and how if they're considered within 10 tefachim, even though one is slightly more convenient in functional usage, halachically they're considered the same level, which generates our problem. And lastly, we discussed the case of if the Reshut HaRabim have access to the upper story, that you would need to put a fixed ladder in between, differentiated from the Reshut HaRabim, so that way the people of the chatzer and the people of the upstairs would be able to use it without the people of the Reshut HaRabim making it a sewer for people upstairs to have usage of it. Okay, so that's the story for this stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If not, I will be seeing everybody tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good day, gentlemen.
All right, 7:30
Be
tomorrow.
well.
Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.